Hi guys, I'm going to make this really simple. So here's my email in case you guys have any questions, so you don't have to ask me later. Okay, cool. Yeah, I am a former student. I graduated from Haas in 2009, so it's really weird to be here. I actually feel really old now. But let me ask you guys to scoot in to the middle so I don't have to look around as much. I don't know if people ask that, but I'm going to ask. So if you can center into the middle of the rows. Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, I'm with Good Paper. I have a lot of, I've done a couple things here and there in terms of businesses. First want to ask, kind of just if you guys can tell me what most of your majors are. Most of you guys seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen. So I guess let me go bottom up then. So you're a senior. Are most people here seniors? Is that why? Okay, so if you're a freshman, raise your hand. Sophomore, junior, senior. Okay, cool. And if you guys can just give me a sense of why you guys signed up for this class, what it is that you guys are kind of all interested in. You guys are interested in starting businesses, or just interested in learning about failure and struggle, so if you guys can just blurt it out.
All of the above.
All of the above. Okay. Anything else? Same. Okay, same. All right. Okay, cool. Well, let me just go ahead and start with where I work to make it simple. I work at a company called Good Paper. We sell and manufacture fair trade greeting cards that are all handcrafted by women who escaped sex trafficking in the Philippines. Now, sounds kind of weird, like, oh, fair trade, people are usually like, oh, okay, you guys are really good people. But then I tell them you'll find us nationwide in Whole Foods, you'll find us in West Island, you'll find us in Urban Outfitters. And that's all something that I've helped the company achieve. So I started with the company about 2 years ago when they were actually on a decline. They experienced their first negative sales growth month in June, and I had started in July. Not a whole lot of traction at Whole Foods, not a whole lot of traction really anywhere. A certain amount of traction with fair trade stores, bookstores, but I essentially came in and helped provide this turnaround experience. We're now, we went from about, I think, like 26% year-over-year growth to about triple digits. So that was about a 2-year process. You should find us in most Whole Foods around the country. Now, 2 years later, I'm really burnt out. I'm really exhausted. And a lot of people will hear stories like this and they'll say, that's so awesome, but my God, it's really a lot of work. So any successes you guys ever hear about, it's, as much as happy as anyone seems, they're busting their ass a lot. So I'm working on, my brother and my wife and I are working on a new company to provide a pour-over coffee filter experience for freshly brewed coffee for campers. That's something we just started about 2 months ago. My first job out of Haas was at Johnson & Johnson in their sales leadership development program. So that's where I got my corporate experience. Sounds cool. I really hated that job. I was there for about 2 years. And then I quit, moved to San Francisco. That was in Chicago to start my own company. That was a fair trade chocolate company. Did that for about 2 years. And that was really, if anything, an experiment and a journey for me on failure. So that didn't work out. Didn't end up with a successful company, but I did end up with a wife. And so towards the end of that, I got engaged, and my father-in-law said, you need a real job. We got a real job. And then I ended up at a company called Quantcast. Digital advertising. So I'll write this up. I was going to do a PowerPoint, but I was like, I just feel like PowerPoint. It's not boring. So I'll write, J&J. And I come from a background in sales. So I started out in sales. And I'm telling you this just so you guys have some context for me. You can ask me some questions. I'm going to give you some specific stories. Not because I love talking about my career. Johnson. My first startup that didn't work out was called Be Remedy. We were selling medical devices. This was fair trade chocolate. then, what did I do? Yeah, I got married, which was cool. Quantcast. So I was here, I'm 28, so I was here for about 2 years. I did this for about 2 years. I did this for 5 months. Can you guys guess why? Oh, hell no. No, not a baby. You guys can keep on guessing. Come on, I want to make this interactive because I hated boring classes. This is where I took micro econ. That was one of my least favorite classes. I got fired, is what it is. Podcast. That sounds so bad, huh? It's not that bad. And I've been here for 2 years. And then ideally, I can tell you guys more about that. So, a little bit about my experience here at Cal. I failed a lot here. So I hated the classes where people kind of just gave a lot of bullshit about like, yeah, this is the way you do business. This is good. Go get a job, do what you think is good for you. Go to banking, accounting, consulting, all that stuff. I was one of the people at Haas who really just had a strong sense of wanting to do what I wanted to do. The issue was there wasn't a lot of validation around me. Everyone around me was saying, oh, I got this job at Bain or McKinsey or PwC. When I was in school, I actually started a concert production club called Remedy Music Project. And we would actually put on concerts and donate proceeds to charities. So I've really been interested in the social enterprise space, which is why, Be a Remedy was fair trade. We were donating proceeds to schools and education. Good Paper is a fair trade company working in this social good space, which is why hopefully this is one of our major customers. In terms of failure, I do want to ask you guys some questions. And before I say that, I do want to put one rule on the board. And I'm going to expect this of you guys. So no BS, all right? So if I ask you, have you ever failed? Do not tell me no. That's really bullshit. Everyone here has. Second one, just tell me the truth. And that starts with telling yourself the truth too. So if I ask you, like, are you happy with what you're doing right now? Give me a real answer. I don't really want to hear anything that's going to waste your time. So how many of you guys have experienced failure during your time here at Berkeley? Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys to volunteer and kind of talk about that or share what it is. I want to get a sense of kind of the mental, emotional experiences that you guys are, that kind of composes the room. So let's see. Raise your hand if you've experienced failure and keep your hand up. Okay, you're smiling. You can go.
I failed a very difficult chemistry class, a quantum mechanics class. And this was the first class where I'd ever been suffering because it wasn't like I wasn't putting in enough effort kind of thing, which is like, an easy problem to fix. You just go to class more often and, take the class like you should. And so this class was very difficult for me, and I found it really hard to get through, but I also found out that a lot of other people were struggling with it. So that made me kind of feel good about myself.
Oh, cool. Yeah, if everyone else is failing, then that's kind of nice. What's your name?
Nick.
Nick. Okay, cool. All right, everyone else put your hands back up if you haven't said what you failed at. All right. Gray shirt. What's your name?
Harrison.
Harrison.
Yeah. That's pretty cool that it was later on that you struggled. For me, I got trashed in Chem 1A. Absolutely trashed. Came to Cal, really wanted to do bio, really wanted to do pre-med, go into medicine like my dad. A lot of weight on my shoulders in that sense. Got absolutely trashed. It's like, all right, I'm not going to do this. So.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Harrison. Next person to volunteer. I want to hear what else is going on.
My name is Dina. Thought I was going to be the next social entrepreneur, nonprofit person. Spent about 6 months on this project to kind of help out the homeless in the area. It's completely, you think you know what you're doing, and then you open up the subject and you realize you have no idea what's going on. And then it was such a huge problem, and I'm kind of still working on it, but it's just become the back of your mind thing that you forget to check on.
So this is something you recently worked on?
Yeah,
right?
last semester, and then this semester is
okay. What year are you?
I'm a sophomore.
Okay, congratulations. I tried my club. It's called Remedy Music Project. When I was a sophomore, it didn't work. I did it again when I was a senior, and then it worked.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep trying.
It's cool. Who's next? All right, Indian guy in the back. How about you? Oh, both of you. Let's go, both of you.
All right, I'll start. Class I took last semester I found very challenging was Math 54. Even though it might not be terribly hard, the professor and I couldn't understand any of the material. And I somehow passed that class, which was awesome, but I still don't know how. But it definitely felt like a failure like every day in that class.
Okay. Well, how about yourself?
Yeah, so I guess we play intramural basketball, and our team really sucked. So we lost almost every game, and there's nothing like I wanted to help, but there was nothing I could do to help the team. So it was like
Okay, and what are you guys' names?
I'm Karush.
Karush. Shaq. Okay. Let's just have one more person. You want to share?
Sure. So I'm taking this class called Human Physio Assessment, and while I thought it was going to be the easiest piece of cake, I bombed the first midterm and the practical. So I kind of, got humiliated in that class, and since I pulled it up, but that was pretty bad considering that I'm a senior.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let me share. Aside from getting fired at Quantcast, I'll share a little bit more of a serious failure that really scared the hell out of me. I was a sophomore. I was applying to Haas, and remember I was driving up. I think it was I was driving, and I had already applied. I just needed to do well this next semester so I can get in. And my dad was saying, just make sure you do well this semester. So, if you can get into Haas, everything will be fine. I really don't believe that. It's, a degree is a degree, but it's really about what you do. But my dad's like old school. He thinks like what school you go to like makes a huge difference. It kind of matters, but not really. So just don't worry. Just work really hard, focus, do well this semester. And that semester, I actually got 2 no passes. And he was kind of like, what the hell? But throughout my time here at Berkeley, I got almost every grade that you can possibly get except for an A+. So I got A's, I got A-, I got B+, I got C's, I got D's, I got no passes, I got passes. So, one of the things that I think is really memorable to me is if you are at Berkeley, you probably did decently in high school, at least decently. And coming into a place where all these people do well and the competition is really, really strong, I think for me it was this process of realizing, well, then what the heck is it that I'm supposed to be good at? And so for me, it was this question of I was really lost. Failure is kind of a situation where you get lost and you don't know what to do next. And if you don't have mentors, if you don't have people around you, it's hard to figure out what to do next. And I'm also the oldest of 3 siblings. And I'm also the oldest on both sides of my family, so I'm the oldest cousin. So I don't really have a lot of role models or anything. So as I was doing my club, it was kind of this big risk. All my friends were in Delta Sigma Pi. Is that what it's called? Delta Sigma. Is that right? DSP. Okay, DSP. Yeah. DSP, AK Psi. A lot of them were in ABA. Do these things sound familiar to you guys? I don't know. Asian Business Association, and they are many of them are Asian. It's kind of weird, and so I remember sitting in my room. I was actually just started crying because I was so scared. We were scheduling a concert, and I said to myself, "Well, what if people don't show up?" Luckily people showed up, and it went well. We raised money, but I realized that this was my sophomore year, that I didn't really know how to continue the club. So I wrote an email to all of my cabinet members. I said, "Hey guys, this is not going to work out. We're going to shut down and finish this off." And it makes you think like, well, what did I do wrong? Was I ready? Was I good enough? Did people not care? Who actually cares? Who doesn't care? And then I kind of dusted it off, and then I did something else the next year, and I tried it again when I was a senior. And it worked, and then the club lasted, I think, like 3 years after I left or something. But it was really this experience of when you fail, there's really no other experience that you learn more than when you fail and struggle. And I think it's really important before I get into a lot of these more, a lot of more tough failures to say that it's really important to just be honest with yourself and be truthful with yourself about your failures and be truthful with yourself about what you wish had happened. So, moving here to when I did Be a Remedy, I had a lot of friends who kept on saying, hey, so when are you actually going to launch? When are you going to launch? For 6-7 months, I would say, oh, we're going to launch in a month. We're going to launch in a month, over and over and over. And then finally, when I realized that it wasn't going to work, people say, oh, what are you doing next? You kind of want to hold this image of, oh, it just didn't work out. Timing's not right. But I'm going to move on and do something else. But that's one way to approach how you feel about the situation. It's another thing to say to yourself, I'm actually really sad and I'm actually really pissed and I can't really talk about it right now. The sooner you can get to, holding onto your reputation and your own pride to the reality of the situation, the sooner you're going to learn and the sooner you'll be able to create a success sometime thereafter as well. So those are kind of my first thoughts, but let me talk a little bit about my time here at Quantcast. So let's see. When I was at Quantcast, I was really pissed because this company that I had put all my heart and soul in, I talked to the San Francisco Unified School District. I talked to potential networks for funding. I talked to other entrepreneurs who had a lot of information to share. Anyone here know what Kitchen Bowl is? Okay, never mind. Never mind. All right. Well, I think they're going to blow us. I talked to friends who were doing companies, and they seemed like they knew what they were doing. And I was like, okay, well, I guess this is not going to work out. I was devastated. At the same time, I got engaged here, and I will tell you something that really sucks. You get engaged. I started this job, and we're really excited. If you see my engagement video, everyone's saying, yeah, Jeff, and my dad in the background goes, and he got a job, and everyone claps even more, and that's now in our family history. So I was working, and let me tell, I bootstrapped this, and so I spent about $14,000 of my savings. Luckily, I made enough money here. But it was maybe like $25,000 spent, turned into nothing. I was really malnourished to the point where if I ate a piece of broccoli, I could feel the nutrients go through my body because I ate ramen every day. I was dating someone who paid for a lot of stuff that I had or that I needed, and I never went out because when you're bootstrapping, you don't have money to spend. And you live in San Francisco. My wife and I live in San Francisco. We live in Potrero Hill. All your friends want to go out for a beer. If you buy one beer in San Francisco, it's like $8. And if you're poor, $8 is like a burrito at Chipotle. I'm like, oh my God, I can't. It's a really. I'm gonna talk about this more later because this is a really crazy experience that I think I should share. But anyway, so I was working. We were planning a wedding. Okay. How many of you guys are married? Okay, anyways, never mind. Planning a wedding. We were looking for a home to buy. So home buying. And so all this stuff was going on. And I just didn't like my job because I was telling myself, I was sitting at my desk saying, no, I'm an entrepreneur. I want to start a company. I don't want to work. They had about 300 people when I joined. And I said, I don't want to be another salesperson out of this team of 50. It's, that's not sexy to me. It's not interesting. I want to learn how to talk about pricing. I want to build a business model. I want to meet with funding partners. I want to talk about company strategy, all this cool stuff. So I would sit there and then the sales trainer would say, hey, you just don't seem like you really want to be here. You seem like you wish you were doing your own company. And I said, no, I want to be here. I want to be here. And I said I wanted to be here because I said, I like this job. I was unemployed for basically 2 years. We're planning a wedding. My in-laws are going to be really pissed if I just got engaged to their daughter. I borrowed money from my parents for a ring, by the way. And we're trying to buy a home. You're trying to buy a home and you get fired. Like, that's really bad. That's not a good thing. so I was there for 5 months, and then they put me on a performance plan. It was a 30-day performance plan. If you didn't bring in this amount of revenue, we were gonna have to let you guys go. It's really, I don't know how to communicate this, but when you're doing all these things, living in San Francisco, you know, all your friends are going out, you're visiting wedding venues, you're visiting homes at open houses on Sunday, talking to a real estate agent, and then you find out that you're gonna lose your job. That's really demoralizing. That's really tough, and it really strikes you in places where you realize, like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why do I suck? You know, I don't, you know, these are big things. Most people do this only in 1 year. Most people do this in 1 year. We were trying to do it all at the same time. And so I got fired in June. My last day was, I think June 6th. And so that's you know, believe it or not, that sounds like a pretty bad story. This is like one of the easier things that I've gone through. So June 6th, luckily, I had applied to a whole bunch of jobs around this time period. And then the CEO, owner, I'm the director of sales and marketing, not the CEO, by the way.
Okay.
But whatever. This guy had applied. He says, "Hey, I'm looking to hire a sales manager. Are you still interested?" And I think he emails me in May while I'm on the performance improvement plan. And I'm kind of like, holy shit, yes, I'm totally interested in your sales manager job. So I meet with him, you know, and we get along really well. You know, they've been around for, at this point, maybe 5 years. And basically what happens is, I think this was my last day. So I got 2 weeks off, or this was week 1. I got week 2 and week 3 like paid, right? And my insurance went through, so I wasn't making any money in the 4th week. But this job started July 1, and that was really relieving, guys. I basically went from getting fired with 1 week of no pay to essentially starting July 1. And, you know, a lot of people will look at resume continuity. They're going to say, well, why was there this gap? And I was lucky enough to where there was basically no gap. And then so here, like I said, you know, they're pretty small, but we've gone nationwide in Whole Foods, gotten into West Elm, Urban Outfitters, and then I helped take us to profitability. They were not profitable before I joined. And so all of a sudden I came from, oh, this is really, really bad. This is really stressful. I'm getting fired, to here and experiencing a lot of success. And that was great. You know, it was really fun. It was really, really tiring. And this was 2 years, like I said. And essentially what the plan has been ever since I've started the company was for my boss to step out, become the owner / chairman, and then for me to transition into the CEO position for the company. So the company has technically about, let's say 130 employees. That's kind of like business BS because 120 of them are card makers in the Philippines. So we actually really have like 6 employees, right? So if you look us up on LinkedIn, we're in the 150 to 200 employee category. But this is really what it is. So let's see. So that's kind of that. And then starting in December, I went to the Philippines. I visited a lot of card makers, saw the production sites, and the goal was to develop relationships with our production partners and get a sense of our supply chain so that they can transition into the leadership role. Simultaneous to that, anytime you are in a position where you're going to take on a fair amount of responsibility, you're talking about compensation, right? Because we all have to make money. So for a good 2 to 3 months, I was negotiating what my salary was going to be, what my equity payout was going to be. And that was really tiring. I will say now, don't let money get in the way of your dreams. I think a lot of people will pick money over the dream. Always be willing to sacrifice money in the short term to get what you really want in the long term. And when I say short term, if you're 25 or less in years of age, that's short term. I'm 28. I still feel really young. I feel really old being here. But anyways, so don't pick money over your dream. Go for the dream. But my point in bringing up the compensation is, I think 3 weeks ago or 1 month ago, my boss actually asked me to resign. So that's crazy, right? Because I was here, I got fired, and I'm here. I helped this company become profitable, get into all these stores. I have relationships with a lot of these people, and now my boss is asking me to leave. What the fuck, dude? Like, so I know this is not really like a topical thing. This is more of just kind of sharing stories of failure. I did want to open up to if there's any questions right now. Like, you can ask questions at a time. If you have questions about anything specific here, are there any questions? Yeah.
Why do you want you to leave?
Okay, I'll get to that. Yeah. Question.
I was gonna say why.
Oh. Yeah, any other questions? Oh. Well, okay. Well, he asked me to leave because he's white and he actually prefers to work with white people. That's not true. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. He's a Chinese Vietnamese guy. So he's much more Asian than I am. My dad works at Panda Express. He's worked there for like 18 years. I love Panda Express. I think to a lot of people that means I'm more white than I am Asian. How many of you guys love Panda Express? Okay. Well, anyways, how many of you guys have not been to Panda Express actually? Okay, well, if you haven't been there, go give it a try. They're kind of like the Chipotle of Chinese food. It's kind of hard, right? So yeah, he asked me. This is like what I'm dealing with right now. My boss asking me to resign, and I said, well, "What the hell am I supposed to say to the rest of the employees?" And he said, "Well," I said, "Well, you're basically firing me, right?" And this was in February or March. And my official last day on payroll is June 30th. I said, "You're firing me." He's like, "No, I'm not firing you. I'm just trying to ask you to, this will make sense for the company." I'm like, all right, whatever. So the reason he's firing me is a very complicated issue, actually. Now, this is probably important to share. This is really annoying. This is probably important to share. Just because you bring success to a company, financial success or revenue growth, doesn't necessarily mean you're being successful at the company. The short answer is cultural fit reasons, personality, vision for the company, philosophy. So in a lot of ways, this is really a request from my boss, the CEO, to me to resign for the better of the company. He didn't think that we were comparable enough in terms of him becoming chairman and me being CEO to work closely enough together and have enough of a shared vision and philosophy for what the company should look like, what the company's strategy should be, and being an entrepreneurial person and being a salesperson, I'm usually pretty aggressive about what I think we should do. And quite frankly, he kind of got tired of it, and he said, "I'm going to ask you to resign. We're going to have to wrap this up." And at the same time, there's a cultural thing, but there's also a business strategy thing. I help the company break through and get all these accounts. Managing these accounts should be cheaper for the company than to just have me there. So the other thing is, it makes a lot of sense if you're the owner of the company to get rid of your key sales guy and hire multiple salespeople for the field. Because I work from the office and I travel every once in a while, but we want to hire a field sales force, and I think essentially use my salary to build that out. Really weird, right? Like to think about, like, I'm kind of getting screwed, right? Because I help do all this stuff. I should be at the company. And I'll be really frank and say, I'm not exactly sure what the lesson is yet, but I'm sharing the story because when I was in school, everyone always told me, if you work hard, you'll get to the next level. Work hard to get to the next level. If you bring results, you get to the next level. That might be true if you work at a corporation, but these days, a lot of people want to start and own their own companies. Owning a company, working in a small team, it's a lot more than just results. It's about personality. Do you guys get along? Do you have the same values? And when I say values, that always sounded vague to me, but let's do a case study. For example, if you need to fire somebody yourself, I had to fire a sales guy that was on my team. And he is he needs to be making money because he has a wife. You can either fire him and give him 2 weeks off, 2 weeks of pay, and then look for someone to fill in his spot right away, or you can fire him, let's say give him 2 months worth of pay so that he'll have a 2-month cushion to look for another job while he's still making money. If you give him the 2-month cushion, the company is taking a hit, right? Because you're paying 2 months worth of salary, and you're not necessarily going to be able to look for someone at the same time. It's hard because he's going to be at the office. It's weird to have someone that you're firing there while you're interviewing other people. If you let him go right away, give him 2 weeks of salary only, quick, clean, easy, bring someone else in, much more efficient for the company. So raise your hand if you would do the 2-month option. All right, actually, let's do this. Everyone stand up, stand up, stand up. So if you would do the 2-month option, go to that side of the room. And if you would do the 2-week option, go to that side of the room. Okay, let's just 2 months. Sorry. All right, I know there's supposed to be time for questions, so let's make this fast. I want to share a quick note about that. All right, I'm going to have all you guys send one person to the front and explain why. But you have 1 minute to get together, pick one person, put all the reasoning together, and send that person. So, ready, set, go. Let's not be indecisive, guys. Come on, let's go.
It's small.
Are you talking to them? Yeah. Do they know what you're going to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't want to take a 2 months old financial hit.
Business wise, I know it's small. If it was a big company, it could easily
Are you guys ready? Okay.
Who am I
All right.
talking to?
Let's talk to the other side. Actually.
Center of the room.
Let's talk to the other side.
Yeah, we think it's.
No, you guys stand here.
Okay, so from our analysis for from the company's ethical perspective and also from like the actual practicability and operations of hiring another person, we think it really doesn't matter to just leave the guy for another 2 months because first of all, the salary for one person is not too much anyways. And secondly, interviewing a new guy while the old guy's there doesn't really matter because you can just kind of like, oh, he's interviewing for another position. It doesn't really like conflict with like any interest at all. And thirdly, it's just for like good karma, for the company, just to be like, okay, we are not that kind of cold-hearted, and also kind of like the current other employees know, like we're not gonna do that kind of thing to you guys, so don't worry about it.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, if you actually care about your employees, there's a saying, right? Like something about one for all or all for one. You are literally sucking up money from the company that could be reinvested into more capital or into benefits for your other employees that are working for you, that are providing value to keep this one guy on who, at the end of the day, we're going to take morals out of the equation. He couldn't do his job. You are paying someone for doing no work and for adding no value to the company. It makes no sense to not reinvest this capital back into your company to add more value to your existing employees that are helping you and your company grow. Look, from a moral standpoint as well, giving this guy 2 additional months of pay is unfair to everyone else who's at the company. It makes no sense to them why this guy who's not doing anything is getting the same amount of money that they are.
Okay, cool. Yeah, all right, you guys can sit down. Thanks.
You're responding to
No, it's fine. I'm trying to make sure the class is not boring. All right, so as you guys sit down, what I want to tell you guys is I had a sales guy, and that was really the conversation that we had. He was kind of sucking. My boss is really, really morally, like, oh, we got to help this guy out. I will also say my boss is really rich. So for him, there was no sense of, oh, we need to make sure we give this guy a clean cut. It's okay for the company, we can handle it. Me being the sales managing person for this guy, I was like, well, we need to get this guy out because I want the guy as soon as possible. My point is, even if you get Whole Foods into your company, that question will as you get higher into your career, will develop itself more, because people are going to say, hey, we should give two months because we're a company that cares about our people this way. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, but that was kind of the situation here, and I just want to highlight that because a lot of people think it's just about money. It's not always about the money. It's values do kind of conflict sometimes. So I know we have a little bit of time left. What I wanted to say about this was, I had grown up going to high school did pretty well, and whatever, got into Berkeley, got into Oz. I felt like I was walking this ladder path. This was the path that I was supposed to take. I was working at Johnson & Johnson. Everyone was like, oh, cool, you got a good job. You got a corporate job. Parents were cool. Like, congratulations, I'm really proud. This is what they talk about when you go to career fairs. They have like a big table. But when I was here, I was just really unhappy. I felt like I needed to take a risk and do what I really wanted to do. So I quit that job. One year, this failed, and I suffered tremendously. I suffered a lot. But really what I figured out was what I was really good at and what I really cared about and what I really wanted to do. I did this when I was 20. I quit when I was 23. I moved to San Francisco April 2011. A lot of my friends were working at all these corporate jobs. But as soon as I ended this, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, which is why I got fired here so quickly, because it was so evident that it didn't fit. But because of my experience here, figuring out exactly what I wanted to do, what I was good at, and failing there, I was able to come to good paper and execute on all these things because I knew this was the right fit for me. So if you can take the risks, be willing to fail, figure out what you're really good at, what you really want to do, what you really don't want to do. Don't be afraid of coming into your Quantcast and saying, hey, this is not the right fit for me. I need to go somewhere that actually fits. You're a good paper, whatever. My good paper has been a really great experience. So a lot of this experience was also like uber spiritual too, because I was like, God, why am I starving? What do I do? Like, I don't know where I'm supposed to live. Stuff like that, but that's probably too meta for this class. So before we go into questions, I do want to say, figuring out what you want to do will make you a bad fit for certain places because your value proposition in the market and what you want to do for yourself with your life is so clear. But when you find a place that it fits, that fit will be really, really good. You don't want to be someone who kind of fits kind of everywhere, because then that's the people who don't really. It's like, what the hell? Like, no, you want to be the best wherever you go, and you can only be the best once you figure out where you're willing to put in the hard-ass work. And the reason I finally mentioned that is because, through this job, I've done a lot of networking. I'm actually going to, a socially conscious venture capital fund. I'm joining their founding team for this app called Love Tap. So I'm in transition. So I say that for the end because it was like, I don't know, some suspense, I guess. But I'm fine. I'm going to go part-time with them in May, probably go full-time in June. But the point is, when I said to someone there, they're asking me to leave a good paper, and she said, well, that's what leaders do. Leaders go and grow. They move places, and then they grow. So what was your name?
Me? Dina.
Yeah. It's what?
Dina.
Dina. Okay, so Dina, what's your org called?
That's what you want to call it. One Ask.
One Ask. Okay, so for One Ask, if it didn't work out the first time, it'll work out the next time. It might not be called One Ask. It could be something else. And people in your situation have to remember those things because it's really hard. It's hard on the heart to put yourself into these situations where you might fail, and people are going to know it, and they're going to say, "Oh, good thing I didn't do that because I don't want to be in your position." But if you keep at it and learn, you're going to eventually. The point is not even success. The point is like just going in the direction that you should be going. So that's that. I don't know. We have some time for questions. Cool. Thanks for listening. Say your name before you ask a question too.
My name is Abhishek. One question I have for you is, I guess you've had like a lot of different kinds of experiences. What was your biggest takeaway from Berkeley and from Haas that you kind of use day to day?
Really? Okay. No, good question. Sorry, not really like, oh, that's your question. I thought that was a great question. I said really like, oh, you really want to hear my actual answer. I'll give two answers. I'll give the really real one, and then the second one is probably better if this was like a 300-person lecture. My first answer, the things that I took away from school were there's a lot of bullshit. Like a lot, like what the heck, like what are you gonna do with all the stuff that you learn? Like what you're trying to do is learn how to get an A so you can get a job. Like, what the fuck is that supposed to help you for your life, except for getting a corporate job? What does that do for you? So I learned that there's a lot of bullshit and just useless stuff that I learned. The education system, in my opinion, teaches you how to jump through hoops, not to achieve what you want to achieve. If you're at a corporation like Bain Company, that's a great company. I'm not saying that's bad. I have a lot of friends who had worked there, really great people. And I'm not saying working for a corporation is bad, but for me being an entrepreneur, I had to accept the fact that that's not for me. But if you're working at a big company like Johnson & Johnson, a lot of success also means pulling political hoops, learning how to jump through hoops. If you want to start a company, there's no hoops. The only option is success or failure. There's no such thing as a hoop. So that's the first answer. The second answer is kind of weird. It was a good experience. It was a really vibrant experience where I encountered a lot of perspectives. I had this playground to kind of like figure out and be messy about who I was. And you know, I think everyone has these up and down periods where they play with what they like, what they don't like, what they want to do. For me, that happened to be my college years. So I had some good classes, some good A's, some failures here and there, and that opportunity. Now that I'm 28, I realize was not as bad as I thought it was. It was the time to experience failure in its biggest form. So,
let's say you get one.
What's your name?
Kevin.
Kevin.
Let's say you get one redo in that timeline. What do you redo?
I would not get married. No, I'm just kidding. No. Marriage is cool. I really love my wife. If I had one redo, that's an awesome question, actually. If I had one redo, I can't, honest. Maybe I would have negotiated a little less harshly for the CEO position. I think I got really full of myself. I said, well, I've helped us do all this. This is why I deserve this much. But I think it's always important to remember, one, stay humble, and two, always remember in any company situation, who actually owns the company and who's actually an employee. You can be treated like a partner. You can be treated like you're very valuable. But remember, at the end of the day, you're either an owner or an employee. There's no in between. I forgot which one I was. I was really an employee, even though I was going to be CEO. You think, oh, I'm going to run the company. No, he still owns over 90% of the company. So. Question?
My name is Rapson. Why just business and love tap? You talked about all these things and you have reasons for them, and you just rushed.
Well, for one, Just Business is a fund that created this nonprofit called Not for Sale, and their mission is to fight human trafficking. So they create programs around the world that provide jobs. So it's missional fit with what I like to do in the social enterprise piece. Love Tap because that's where they needed the help. I've never done digital marketing or business development. These are all CPG. This was digital advertising, and so that's really interesting to me. Secondly, I get along with them really well. Cultural fit. Cultural fit as you get older is really important because you want to work with people you care about. Lastly, it's like a 5-minute walk from my house. So I don't want a long commute. And it kind of fell into my lap. I was networking with them, and then they brought this up, and I was like, okay, this is really cool. So, yeah. Question?
My name's Dina. So social impact seems to run throughout your ventures that you did. Why did that happen? Is that something that you've consciously been doing, or is that kind of
so I think when I was a freshman, I was living in Cunningham. What really got me into social entrepreneurship was reading Jeffrey Sachs' book, The End of Poverty, Getting Rid of Extreme Poverty by the year 2025, I think, with the Millennium Development Goals, and also Product Red. You guys familiar with that gap thing? So that really, when I started B Remedy, are you guys familiar with B corporations?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when I started that, B corporations were only legislated in like 5 states. So I was a little too early there. I was like, is this a nonprofit or is this a for-profit? I didn't really know what, but now it's a lot easier because there's a lot more language to facilitate that kind of business model. But absolutely, I'm really, social enterprise is kind of what I've always loved. Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up? Because a lot of people think that you should, you started in a corporate job and then you kind of switched back over. A lot of people think that's the only way you should ever do that. Because need the experience in the corporate job, but I don't know, like I'm like, I don't know what
All right,
I want to do.
Yeah, let me tell you about my classmates. I guess familiar with Back to the Roots. Ross talk about that sometimes. Back to the Roots, they're my year. They got banking and consulting jobs, but they forewent those to pursue their company. Now they're like nationwide in like Crate and Barrel, Home Depot, Target. They are a huge company considering how long they've been around. No corporate background. That doesn't mean corporate background is bad. I did corporate background, but then again, I'm not really a successful entrepreneur. But that's not even telling in itself. Point is, like whatever like picture of this is how it's supposed to be, I'm gonna call it the normative, like the should. This is what it should be. This is how it's supposed to be. This is the way it's always been. Fuck all of that and take it to this is what it is. So take it from normative to empirical. This is what it is. This is what I am. This is what the world is. This is what the market is. And you have to, and I'm not saying one is worse than the other. Corporate is good. No corporate is bad. But when you say is, start with yourself. Do I know enough to do what I really want to do? I think that's important. Then maybe I should get experience. Is the market ready for what I want to do? Maybe I should learn more. Or is this what my parents have always wanted to be an engineer. Should I be an engineer? That's for you to call. Or what are you really? What is the should versus the is? I think that's really important to understand because a lot of successful entrepreneurs out there, they'll talk about things. I've heard Peter Thiel talk about Asperger's, Asperger's syndrome. Are you familiar with Asperger's? So it's basically people who like kind of walk around and seem like they don't really give a shit about what other people think. I know that's not the medical thing, but that's kind of like the social play out. But it's because if you're starting a company, you kind of have to really not give a shit about what other people think. You have to be so into your idea and concept that if they say no to funding, you're like, fuck you, you're gonna miss out on something that's gonna be awesome 3 years from now. Not, oh, I'm not good enough. So, but everyone in school, like all you guys are still pretty young. So just, I'm not saying this normative stuff is bad. I'm not saying that empirical stuff is bad, but understand what the difference is. Do I want to do this because everyone else is doing it? Or, like this is a weird example. Like you're dating a hot girl, right? Like, oh, am I so happy that I'm dating a hot girl because everyone else wants to date her? Or am I happy I'm dating a hot girl because I actually really get along with her and we have good chemistry? It's really hard to figure out the two. Like they kind of blend together, right? But the more clear you can become with this, the more honest you can be with yourself. Like, does this come from the school I go to? Does this come from my parents? What I grew up in? Or is this what I really am? And if what you really are is different from all this stuff, stick with it and just persevere. But don't discount this. A lot of learning happens here. I will say, when I was at Johnson & Johnson, I hated that job, but I learned so many skills about sales that I still use today. And it was really one of the best learning experiences I've ever had. So just because something is something that you really hate doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. So like I hate my wife sometimes, but she's my wife. I love her. Maybe that doesn't make as much sense now, but yeah. All right, we'll do one more question, unless you guys just want to get out. Okay.
Do you think I have to naturally be an entrepreneur?
I don't think I'm qualified to answer that question, but what I will say is, having read a lot about it, talked to many people who've done it and do it, and doing it myself, I would not think in those terms. Like, can you naturally become an entrepreneur? I think it's more of a question of, do you have the perseverance required and the adaptability required? Because you'll work harder than you'll ever work in your entire life. The only thing I hear is harder than starting your own company is having kids. And I don't think any of you guys are near that. So this is going to be the hardest thing you'll ever do. And it requires a lot of mental, emotional, flexible ingenuity. You have to eat healthy. You got to exercise. You got to work really hard. You got to be quick. You got to be efficient. So it's not about what's most natural. I think it's about what you want. Are you willing to work hardest for it and persevere the most? Yeah. So thanks, guys. If you have more questions, you can come up. That's my email. Feel free to email me questions. I would have liked it if there was someone to ask a lot of questions here when I was doing my startup. So feel free.